Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this special activity of Global Goals 100 times 35, the virtual edition. We are honored to have you here tonight, and thank you so much for taking the time during this awkward times that the world is facing right now to join us in this activity pertaining to Sustainable Development Goals on islands across the world. I am going to go over the agenda for tonight. From 6 to 7 p.m., we will be having local presentations pertaining to Sustainable Development Goals initiatives in Puerto Rico in different sectors, the private sector, government, academia, and NGOs. We have special guests from Casa Bacardi. We have Wesley Cullen, the general manager. We also have Nilda Mari Diaz, representing the Puerto Rico Tourism Company, particularly the Division for Sustainable Development. We also have attorney Jorge Silva Puras and Germarilis Ruiz in representation of Universidad Sagrado Corazón. And we also have the privilege of having Chris Nitsch, Dr. Christopher Nitsch, who is the coordinator of the RCE Puerto Rico. That's the acronym for Regional Center of Expertise on Education for Sustainable Development. Then from 7 to 7:30, we are honored to have our keynote speakers joining us from New Zealand. We had the pleasure of having Kate Brown. She's the executive director of the Global Island Partnership, and also Celeste Connors. She's the executive director of Hawaii Green Growth. Right after that, we're gonna be having a session of question and answers. So you could place your questions on the chat room, but also you could raise hand function that you have on your Zoom platform, and then you could make the presentation, opening your microphone and your video if you so wish. So that's the agenda we have for tonight. And first, we're gonna have a welcoming message from the president of the board of directors of UNA USA Puerto Rico. He's not only my boss, but also my mentor and friend, attorney Jorge Gonzalez, a former graduate of Andover Academy, Harvard College, Harvard Law, but more importantly than that, his commitment to the philanthropic sector as former president of the Red Cross in Puerto Rico and also of United Way. So at this time, I pass the microphone to Jorge Gonzalez.
Well, I just want to say hello, welcome, aloha, and thank you for joining us and for participating in this event, and look forward to hearing from all of you tonight. So maybe we'll have some questions at the end, but I don't have anything to add. I want to listen to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us, and let's go forward.
Thank you so much, Jorge. Now, I would like to give some feedback and as to remind us why are we here tonight. So I'm going to be presented a brief video regarding how the Sustainable Development Goals came to be.
The United Nations General Assembly was the scene of a celebration in 2015, when 193 member countries adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, a unanimous commitment to end poverty, fight inequality, and tackle climate change.
We need action from everyone, everywhere. 17 Sustainable Development Goals are our guide. They are a to-do list for people and planet, and the blueprint for success.
The SDGs are an agenda to balance human prosperity, with protecting the planet.
Imagine there's no countries.
UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador Shakira asked global leaders to imagine a world where we achieve the goals by 2030. While fellow UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador Angelique Kidjo underscored a focus on Africa and developing countries. But the universal agenda is important to all nations, as leaders from developed countries also pledged to make the goals a reality.
Poverty, growing inequality exists in all of our nations, and all of our nations have work to do, and that includes here in the United States. And that's why today I am committing the United States to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
The Sustainable Development Goals build on the success of another 15-year plan. Created in the year 2000, the Millennium Development Goals sunset at the end of 2015. The MDGs halved extreme poverty, achieved equal primary education for girls and boys, and dropped HIV infection by 40%, among many successes. The SDGs go beyond the MDGs by improving the lives of everyone, everywhere, and create a better world for future generations.
Today, we are 193 young people representing billions more.
The youngest Nobel Peace Laureate, Malala, calls on world leaders to keep their promise to every child.
Each lantern we hold represents the hope we have for our future because of the commitments you have made to the global goals.
And Pope Francis advised world leaders to put humanity and the environment over politics.
Los gobernantes han de hacer todo lo posible a fin de que todos puedan tener la mínima base material y espiritual para ejercer su dignidad y para formar y mantener una familia.
193 nations unanimously committed to the Sustainable Development Goals.
It is so decided.
But the journey starts here. Now's the time to take global action for local results and move our people and planet towards a sustainable future.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video that give us some context of, once again, why are we here tonight. And now, following the agenda right away, I'm going to pass the microphone to Wesley Cullen, General Manager of Casa Bacardí. Last year, as we were speaking behind the scenes, it was the first activity of Global Goals 135 at Casa Bacardí. This year, due to the circumstances globally that we are facing, we are making this activity virtually, but we are certainly hoping that next year we could continue our collaboration with Bacardi. They have a considerable footprint in the planet. The largest rum distillery in the planet is here in Puerto Rico, and they have done a great job advancing the SDGs in the private sector. And Wesley has been a key part of that in Puerto Rico. So I now pass the microphone with appreciation to Wesley Cullen, General Manager of Casa Bacardí.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias, Ricardo. It's nice to see faces here. I do wish you could all be with us in person and can join us in the future. I thought today, since most of us are familiar with the SDGs, and as Ricardo mentioned, Bacardi is a large global company. We often think of the rum, of course, which is the namesake product of the company. There's in fact more than 200 brands manufactured around the world and enjoyed as well. Patron, Dewar's, Grey Goose, many of them. So there's a lot of information. And there's a lot of it on our website, and you're welcome to reach out to me for any specific examples if you're interested in a specific area, because we really do impact a lot. So I thought of 3 different points that I'd like to share today that maybe don't get into the technical, but that I think are important. The first one is about recruitment. So if you know me, you might wonder what I'm doing at Bacardi, and that's a whole nother story. But one of the main reasons that I joined this company and took a turn in my career that was pretty unexpected is because of the company's commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals and everything they do in line with that. That it was very compelling for me for joining this company. And I'm very pleased to find that as we go recruiting talent, particularly young talent, that will be the future leaders of the company and that we need so much these days, it's also very compelling for them. So it's just another reason that, you know, really the added benefits of participating and making these commitments beyond the impact that they have themselves, and to see the growing momentum and passion around it is something that's really personally satisfying. I think I'm preaching to the choir on it, but you know, same thing, we have so many examples that if they could help anybody to get their companies or other collaborators to participate, more than happy to share. And that would be my second point. I would love to talk to you about sustainability. And what I'll just mention there with Bacardi is part of what I've learned a lot from the company and learned to appreciate, as well as I've learned more about the Sustainable Development Goals and really robustly what's behind them and what sustainability is. I mostly approached it from the environmental aspect in the past, and Bacardi really helped me understand the human aspect as well to sustainability. And where I learned about that as an example is with molasses. So largest premium rum distillery in the world, there's a lot of molasses that comes through our property in Puerto Rico. And we want to source that sustainably. And that doesn't mean only the environmental practices, it also means fair wage and no child labor, which means there are entire countries that we cannot purchase molasses from at certain times because they don't want to agree to those commitments. During the pandemic, that has created additional supply chain challenges. And I'm proud to say the company stays committed, right? We made a commitment, we have certain beliefs, and we follow through on that, even though sometimes it's difficult to do, right? So expanding our point of view about that and really being able to take advantage of all the people that come through here that we can teach about it. On the sustainability part, and recognizing today we're talking and sharing with people from other islands. I saw New Zealand is here, that's super fantastic. And Hawaii, of course, and others. The environmental aspect and oceans and plastic is extra important, or we're just that much more aware of it when we're on islands, right? We see it wash up on our beaches. So proud to say, you know, Bacardi, as part of our commitments, recently announced the first fully biodegradable plastic bottle that we will be releasing in 2023. As well as a few years ago, we were one of the first leaders in the No Straw movement and have a collaboration with Lonely Whale to eliminate 1 billion plastic straws by the end of this year. And what I noticed there, and could talk about a lot of the other things that the company is able to get done, be it on a manufacturing level or a more consumer level like the straws, is it's all about collaboration. Right? There's the things, we make the commitments, and there are things that we certainly drive in our everyday actions and our decisions, but it's all about collaboration. And that's with the suppliers, with the materials, with our consumers, and with organizations like Lonely Whale, so that we can bring to life and really deliver on the commitments that we're aligned with. So on this call today, even though I know we're all aligned on this, it's also where, you know, that chat function serves so that we can get to know each other and figure out different ways we can collaborate, right? It's absolutely amazing. And particularly when you're dealing with these global companies that are in touch with so many different potential suppliers that can help us achieve these goals, as well as participating with innovative programs like this one when we get to talk to students, or Enactus is another one where we can support the youth that are inventing solutions that aren't even existing yet, that are going to help us get there. And to me, with Bacardi, probably what I've learned the most about the Sustainable Development Goals is that you need fearlessness. You need courage. As a company, I have so much respect for every company that has signed up and made the commitment to be aligned with and help deliver the SDGs. That's scary, right? You're, as a company, you're saying you're going to achieve something and you don't even know how. It's several years out. The solution might not exist yet. Or what if you mess up? So Bacardi, I'm proud to say, when I first joined and I went and I read some of the reports, was reporting what they had done wrong. Because the first year, we were measuring the wrong thing. The goal was there, but we were measuring the wrong thing. And new innovations came out and there was a different way to approach it and really achieve that goal. It's not about communication, right? It's not about getting your talking points and your headlines. It's about really achieving the goals. So I think that fearlessness part of it is really important. And like I said, I really respect the companies that publicly will align with this and will go out and say, I'm going to make this happen. I'm committed to it. And then going back to collaboration so that we share those learnings. If something didn't work, let's tell our partners, let's tell the world so that everyone can learn from that, as well as what is working, and where are we finding a lot of the innovation that gets us there. And then bringing it to the consumers. I think that for me is one of the my favorite parts. The manufacturing is fascinating, but it's not the area I focus on. I focus on a little bit more the human aspect. And when we have the opportunity with spirits, right, part of our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals is around the responsible marketing about alcohol. It's very, very important, and the company does a lot with that. So within the context of being responsible, we can use our connection and our relationship with all these consumers to not only talking about the brands and the special moments that you can celebrate with them, but also how you're making a difference. And throughout my career, but particularly in the last few years, and extra with Bacardi, with all the insights and the studies that we see, it is very inspiring and gratifying to me to see how much consumers care about everything that is sustainability, and are really, as I have, and probably all of us, gone learning that it goes well beyond how we initially defined sustainability. There's so much more to it, and we're all interconnected, as we've extra learned this year. And to see how much consumers care about that and make their purchasing decisions based on it, so that all companies will eventually align with this, is something that like I said, it really inspires me, makes me optimistic, and grateful, really, because we need that. So I think, as Jorge said as well, I mean, I could go on about this all night. I love it, but I would rather just invite you to get in touch if you're interested to learn more. You can check out the website or get in touch with me. And from there, I want to hear from all of you and what you're doing, and from the keynote speakers that we can learn from on what you've done on your islands, and apply to Puerto Rico as we all move forward together. So Ricardo, thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to see everybody here, and just participate and support, and hope that we'll be able to host everybody here again next year.
Thank you, Wesley, so much. We are certainly looking forward, as we communicated by email several times, that we wish we could do this in person. Hopefully we will be able to do it next year, but I am really grateful for your presentation, and for exposing us to that, something that you particularly said about the fearlessness. And that's something that every company faces. So I'm so glad that Bacardi has taken that extra step to move forward these SDGs. So once again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I would now be recognizing our second speaker locally, which is Nildamari Diaz. Nildamari is the supervisor of the Sustainable Development Solutions Office, Sustainable Development, at Puerto Rico Tourism Company. I have enjoyed many workshops that we have given in Puerto Rico to different audiences, but I was particularly struck by this great network, this great teamwork of women in Puerto Rico Tourism Company, that for over 20 years have been introducing sustainable development practices and trying to gear the tourism industry in Puerto Rico towards sustainability. And now they have embraced the SDGs. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you to Nildamari Diaz of the Puerto Rico Tourism Company. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Ricardo, for having us to present briefly, because I know we have only a few minutes to explain how the Sustainable Tourism Division has been working to comply and to incorporate the SDGs in our initiatives. First, as a step one, let me see if yes. Step one was the legal framework. In 2006, it was established the Public Policy Act for the Sustainable Development of Tourism in Puerto Rico, known as Law 254. And under this law, it was created our Sustainable Tourism Division. Since then, we have been working to add new experience to Puerto Rico as a touristic destination, but in a more sustainable way. The step two, we establish as a priority the sustainability principles, because it's the only way to ensure the compliance of these principles and not promoting greenwashing. So for our division, it's very, very important this step, and don't forget never those principles to sustain it.
Pues no sé, tengo que decir. Y con mucho orgullo que yo estoy en el sitio adecuado, porque la gente que está escuchando no se
I hear someone speaking. Okay. The step 3, speaking of avoiding greenwashing, we create guidelines and establish criteria for each of our programs. They have their own guidelines created locally and with the feedbacks from our local and federal agencies, NGOs, academia, and hospitality industry representatives. So each of them have their own guideline created locally. As a step 4, we establish a green certification program. Each of them complies to different SDGs. So now we taking a look of each of them. The first one is the Ecotouristic and Sustainable Tourism Facilities Program, best known as Green Hotels Program. This specifically program have 2 types of guidelines. The first one is the design guideline focused on new constructions and new projects. And the second one is the operational guideline that applies to a new and existing projects. Actually, we have 10 hotels certified in this program. The second one is the ecotourism program. This program has the ecotourism guideline, which provides general criteria and also specific criteria based on the type of the activity in the tours. And actually, we have 9 certified enterprises in these programs. And we consider that this program complies with those SDGs as you see in your screen. The third one is the agro program. Is experience based on agricultural activities that may include visits to farm, experience the production of agricultural products, taste our flavors, learning while we are participating on those activities. And we consider that our agrotourism program complies with all of those SDGs, and actually is our program that has the more amount of experiences certified. Actually, we have 28 our experiences certified in this program. We also have the Sustainable Community-Based Tourism Program. Those initiatives seeks to have a positive effect in reducing poverty and supporting the well-being of the communities as healthy places to visit, live, and invest. And we have working with 6 community-based initiatives in Maunabo, Jayuya, Utuado, Arecibo, Luquillo, and Morovis. All of them with unique proposals, implementing the SDGs and providing to Puerto Rico as a tourism destination a new experience, but in more a sustainable way. We work in this program specifically as facilitators. The community is the main actor. Is the key person, right? Is the key. This program also is a model that should be promoted to all its social, economic, and environmental benefits. So we are very proud of those 6 initiatives that we have been working with. I know it's very a short time to share a lot of our information. We have a green catalog that includes all of those programs that has been certified by those programs, agrotourism, ecotourism, and green hotels. So we can send you through email or through Ricardo if you want more information in detail of one of each of them programs. So thank you for the opportunity to present what we have been doing in our Sustainable Tourism Division in the Puerto Rico Tourism Company.
Thank you so much, Nila Mari, for your time and your presentation. It's great the work that you're doing, and certainly in the amount of time we have a lot of presenters today, you don't have the time to as we have done in so many other webinars, to take our time to explain each of these programs and all the hotels and all the agro-ecotouristic projects that you have going on. But it's rather impressive, and it's important that this work continues in Puerto Rico. So thank you so much for being with us. And once again, thank you. I've been seeing the list of participants, mostly members of the Puerto Rico SDG working group that I'm honored to have in. Some of them, Luis Alberto Ferrer from Grupo Ferrer Rangel. It's so great to see you, and such a great collaborator here in Puerto Rico. He has written many columns in Puerto Rico, but certainly has put the SDGs on the map, and has done a great job. But also Ruperto Chaparro, the Sea Grant program, but so many others that I would mention throughout the webinar. But I'm grateful that you have been able to join us tonight. So I will now pass the microphone to Universidad Sagrado Corazón, particularly Attorney Jorge Silva Puras. He's the new provost of Universidad Sagrado Corazón. And also we have Germarilis Ruiz Gallosa. She's the interim director of the Center for Collaborative Innovation at Universidad Sagrado Corazón. It was great to see them last year at the activity at Casa Bacardí, but this year in particular, they certainly moved from theory to practice, advancing the SDGs in academia. An important example of a university integrating a bachelor program, but directly related to the SDGs. So we are proud of what they have done thus far. It's only the commencement of this program, and they are here to speak us a little bit more about it. So I'll now pass the microphone and the floor to Jorge Silva Puras and Germarilis Ruiz.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. Buenas noches. Good evening, everyone. I imagine for our friends in Hawaii, it's good morning. I'm not entirely sure what's the time in Hawaii today or right now, but I do want to thank Ricardo and the organization for putting this fantastic event in place. And I would like to share with you a little bit of the perspective on what we're doing at Sagrado Corazón. So I'm going to share a brief presentation. Let's see if you can see it. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect, great. So let me give you a little bit of perspective about Sagrado, or Universidad Sagrado Corazón. Sagrado is the first and oldest university in Puerto Rico. We're celebrating 140 years this year. We're very glad to have the support of a very, very extensive network of alumni in the island, and have a reputation for being a university that has allowed for the education of women, the first university dedicated to education of women in Puerto Rico. Since the last 30 years, we have turned into a co-ed institution, have one of the biggest and best renowned communications departments in Puerto Rico and probably the Caribbean. And I'm glad that Albi Ferrer is here with us because thanks to the Ferrer Rangel family, we have the Ferrer Rangel School of Communication, which is, as I mentioned, one of the best known and renowned communication schools. But we're moving towards a project that integrates not only communications, but development. And that's what I want to present to you today, which is our new bachelor's degree in sustainable development. As you can see in this slide, it's based on a multidisciplinary program, which is our cornerstone of our new academic program. We call it Rebecca, and it's based on the notion that students need to participate actively in their learning. We strongly believe that students learn best by doing. We call it active learning. It's a pedagogical principle. And this is a perfect example of what we want to do in terms of active learning. We have developed this new bachelor's degree It was just launched, and we expect to receive the first students next semester. And it works on the premise that we need to work with the community, and in conjunction with the community. We are based in Santurce, Puerto Rico. It's a very vibrant and very diverse community, and our intent is to have a symbiotic relationship with the community of mutual benefit. So what we have developed is through NUCO, which is our Collaborative Innovation Center at Sagrado, and with the help of the Ferrer Rangel School of Communications and our science department, we have developed this multidisciplinary program that is based on the Sustainable Development Goals. And what we are doing is we're integrating 4 distinct elements of our curriculum, which is based on a bachelor's that has 120 credits, which includes cultural, environmental, social, and economic aspects. And where those 4 disciplines meet is precisely in the sustainable development. So we expect and hope that our students in this multidisciplinary program will come from all different departments of the university. And as you can see, we have an intent of graduating with the following profile: developing the oral digital communication skills, be focused on the 2030 agenda as a guide, collaborate with designers and sustainable development projects within the Santurce area, and many other profiles that I won't go into extensive detail on, but I do want to give you a sense for what the bachelor's degree entails. It's a 4-year program and has, as you can see, a very well thought out curriculum plan by which you start with the basics of economic and sustainable development and agenda and move on towards a specialization. Again, this is all based on the premise that you cannot be a truly successful sustainable developer if you don't have this combination of skill sets, this combination of attributes and knowledge that we can provide by making it a multidisciplinary approach. Some of the professions that we expect our graduates from the program to pursue are very diverse. Professional studies in urban planning, architecture, public administration, sustainable architecture, environmental management, green entrepreneurship, and even the law. So we are very, very glad because we are already in the process of developing alliances with multiple NGOs in Puerto Rico. We have made alliances and agreements with Casa Pueblo, Peces, El Caño, and many other organizations. And we're glad and honored by this invitation from Ricardo to also start participating and contributing with this great organization, RCE. Now, one of the examples of how we intend to highlight this multidisciplinary approach is by our alliance with the Peace Corps. We were just elected last year as the first and the only university in Puerto Rico that has been chosen by the Peace Corps to develop what is called the Peace Corps Prep program. And basically it's a certification that allows our graduates to have an entry into the Peace Corps upon graduation. But there's some caveats, there's some requirements, of course, that Peace Corps incorporates. And one of them is the areas of study of our graduates. And one of the areas, and as you can see in the bottom, there's several, one of the areas is precisely environmental studies combined with community and economic development. So we see this bachelor's degree as that perfect fit to prepare our graduates, our newly minted sustainable development graduates into the Peace Corps Prep. And there's some more information here. And with that, I truly appreciate again and thank you all very much. And glad to answer any questions as we continue on the presentations. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for a great presentation on the Bachelor at Universidad Sagrado Corazón, its history and how it has been developed and how it will continue going forward. So thank you so much for your time. Today, we had the pleasure of having the president of the university last year at Bacardi, Gilberto Marzuach. So a great continuity to have you here tonight. Thank you so much. And I will now be passing the floor and the microphone to our distinguished colleague, Dr. Christopher Nitsch. He is the coordinator of RCE Puerto Rico. As I mentioned initially, is the Regional Center of Expertise on Education for Sustainable Development. Our entity, UNA USA, it's part of the RCE network, as well as many others that are here tonight, including Universidad Sagrado Corazón. So with no further ado, I will now introduce to you Dr. Christopher Nitsch.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you. A real pleasure to be here today. Can you hear me all right? Very well. Yeah, thanks to Ricardo and UNA USA Puerto Rico for this this opportunity to participate for the second time now. A great event, and it's nice to see many familiar faces as well as some new ones. And as Ricardo said, I'm going to be talking briefly about the RCE in Puerto Rico. First, I'm going to give you a little breakdown of what the concept is, and then I'm going to get into a little bit more about what we're doing here in Puerto Rico. Essentially, an RCE, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is a network that's dedicated to learning and practicing sustainability. And it's a network that includes individuals as well as organizations, institutions, agencies. And the idea is that they come together and they work and they use education. That's the key piece, using education as a tool to build a sustainable future. And so in terms of the members, there's usually groups that represent formal education, like universities, and schools, public education departments, private as well. But then there's also non-formal and informal education, groups from civil society, groups from federal government or local government, private businesses. And the point is all about the interchange and the collaboration working together. That word has come up several times. And so essentially everyone can be a part of an RCE, and everyone in some way should be, because what they do is important. The concept of the RCE goes back to some of the things we saw in the video at the beginning from the Millennium Development Goals. And really, in the last 15 years, it's developed since then, growing and now moving into the new Agenda 2030 and using the blueprint of the Sustainable Development Goals as the framework for what RCEs do. There are many global partners that I list there on the left side of the screen, but at the same time, RCEs really function to then work locally in a regional context. And specifically, the idea is that they bring these organizations together, creating inclusive and innovative platforms, a knowledge base that both promotes the knowledge and then the transfer and training, and making that knowledge relevant and accessible to diverse audiences, and ultimately in the long term looking to transform how we do education and the systems that we have. And so that goes back to what we've heard to several of the previous speakers. Again, collaboration is key in all of this. Like I said, our framework that we use is the global goals, and as you'll know well, there's the 17 SDGs with more than 100 specific indicators. And then a big piece of what the RCEs do then is then a downscaling of that. How do we take these concepts, which can be kind of abstract when we talk about zero hunger? What does that mean in Puerto Rico? What does that mean in Luquillo, Puerto Rico? Or what does that mean in Hawaii? Oh, and Otago, New Zealand? And how then do we implement those the ideas? As Wesley was saying, how do we walk the walk and make it measurable and relevant to the places and people that we live, or where we live? Here is a map of the RCEs around the world. You can see there's quite a few of them. We in Puerto Rico have the first and only one in the Insular Caribbean. We're really proud of that designation. We received it this past year in January, and we're hoping to also be a leader for the Caribbean region. There are a couple in New Zealand. There's a new one in Otago, and there's also one in I think it's Waikato. And I believe Hawaii as well is also in the process of applying, at least one place in Hawaii is applying for RCE status as well. So welcome to the network. I think you'll enjoy being a part of it. So here in Puerto Rico, the vision that we have, we work at the island scale, and we have partners all over the island, many of them in the urban areas of San Juan, Ponce, and Mayagüez. Those are represented by the stars there. But we also have groups that regionally are focused around certain geographic areas. For example, the yellow blob on the right there represents the municipalities around El Yunque National Forest, and there's a lot of groups working with common interests there. And so our vision is really to develop these healthy and equitable and sustainable communities and ecosystems as well, right, that are resilient to these changes in terms of the socioeconomics and environmental dynamics that we experience. We have goals directly related to access to quality education and improving awareness about sustainability goals and concepts, and then using that to promote sustainable use and management and conservation, ultimately to improve livelihoods, right? And thinking of how we use resources related to water, energy, and food. And again, the long-term vision here is enhancing our individual and collective resilience. We have about 22 members right now. These are logos of the majority of them. Sagrado Corazon is a member as well. And we're really pleased that we have members representing civil society as well as the, agencies in terms of the government. And from the private sector, we would like to have more representation in terms of the private businesses, and so for those of you who work in that sector, I'd love to talk with you more about that. And a really important thing I want to mention is the network and how that functions, right? Because again, it is the collaboration among the stakeholders that matters here, and the synergies of these different groups coming together and what they can do together that they can't do alone. And it goes beyond just the RCE here, but specifically, it goes beyond the RCE and it plays out to the global level. And so there's a scalable element to the RCEs. And if you go back and think about that map of all the RCEs around the world and how powerful it is to be a part of this network, it really allows you to leverage resources and work at different scales. For the past year, we've been homebound a lot because of the pandemic, as all of us have, but we've been busy involved with SDG webinars and news articles and conferences. Many of them thanks to our partners such as GFR Media, who have created opportunities for us to publish, as well as other venues, educational venues where we've been able to present about the RCE concept and the SDGs in partnership with several of our members. One of the projects that we launched in July is a project that's focused around sustainable agriculture, and we're doing this together with the Greater Burlington Sustainability Education Network, who have served in a mentorship role for our RCE. And the focus here is looking at where the SDGs and agroecology meet and doing research on the metrics and indicators of data integration tools of agricultural sustainability on small farms. And one of the key pieces here is really trying to bring in a participatory action approach and engaging local growers and moving beyond the literature, right? Because obviously local growers have a lot of perspective on this. And so that's a contribution we're trying to make with this work. We're also actively leveraging our partnerships with academic programs, including Sagrado Corazon. You heard about their new bachelor's in sustainable development, as well as other partners such as the University of Puerto Rico and the Faculty of Education, which has done some really neat work recently on creating curriculum based on the SDGs and the world's greatest lesson, which many of you may be familiar with. So as some final thoughts, I would just like to say, go back to the global scale and think about, an invitation of really what being part of the RCE network can provide. We are actively engaged with many groups in the Americas, but there's opportunity to move beyond that as well and work at the global level. Love to speak more with the folks from New Zealand and Hawaii and wherever else people may be tuning in from, because there's really a lot of richness and possibility in the collaborations, and that's what the RCE is all about. And as a parting thought then, if you think about the present state of things and where we are, which we could describe as unsustainable in many ways, and where we want to go in the future, that vision of sustainability, it's a long road, right? And it's certainly, we need mechanisms and we need structures to get us there. And the RCE network really is a bridge between where we are now and where we want to go that is relevant in this moment, starting out, and long term. And with that, I will say thank you, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your presentation on RCE Puerto Rico. It's certainly it's a it's an important step towards the next section of this activity pertaining SDGs on islands across the world. So RCE being in the Caribbean region and the first one, it's an important distinction, and it has been a pleasure for us to be collaborating as one of the partners of this network in the island. I will now be moving forward, and it's almost unheard of in Puerto Rico that we are actually on time. We are actually on schedule, and even a few minutes more. So I will now take this opportunity to introduce to you to our keynote speakers for tonight. We have Kate Brown. You see on screen, she's the executive director of the Global Island Partnership. And for those of you who are wondering what time it is in different parts of the world as we are joining now, of course, you know, in Puerto Rico it's almost 7 o'clock, but as we started this activity, it was 6 o'clock in Puerto Rico, it was noon in Hawaii, and it was morning, it was 11 a.m. at New Zealand, where Kate is. So Kate is the executive director of the Global Island Partnership, a platform that enables island leaders and their supporters to take action to build resilient and sustainable island communities. Kate is certainly a passionate advocate for islands. She is a valued and trusted international partnership and collaboration leader with a unique ability to connect dots for issues and people. Kate has extensive experience in all island regions globally and brings an extensive network of island leaders, blue sky thinkers, and people dedicating to supporting islands. Kate has experience also working inside government, nonprofits, and intergovernmentally, as well as a keen sense of the most important elements of the international policy setting space relevant to islands, as well as what is needed for implementation to happen. These small island developing states within the UN system is where islands are represented and where the interests are represented. So Kate has extensive experience on this. She is a strategic thinker who is able to present clear ideas and set up the right conditions for collaboration to thrive. Kate is originally from New Zealand and lived for 8 years in Apia, Samoa. I am also going to be introducing, as they will make this presentation jointly. It's an honor to have also tonight with us Celeste Connors. She is the executive director of Hawaii Green Growth, the local 2030 hub. HGG is the acronym of Hawaii Green Growth. And Celeste has over 20 years of experience working at the intersection of economic environment, energy, and international development policy. Before joining Hawaii Green Growth, she was CEO and co-founder of CDOT's Development, which works to build resilient infrastructure systems and services in vulnerable communities. Celeste previously served as the Director for Environment and Climate Change at the National Security Council and National Economic Council in the White House during the Obama administration, where she helped shape the administration's climate and energy policies, including the topic of tonight, the Sustainable Development Goals. Prior to joining the White House, Celeste served as a diplomat in Saudi Arabia, Greece, and Germany. She also held positions at the US mission to the UN, served as the Climate and Energy Advisor to the Undersecretary for Democracy and Global Affairs at the US Department of State, and also worked for the City of New York. Celeste is a senior adjunct fellow at the East-West Center and was faculty member at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies in the Energy, Resource, and Environment program. She holds a master's in development studies from the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies and a bachelor in international relations from Tufts University. Celeste has served on numerous boards, including her current service on Hawaii Electric Industries, the Global Island Partnership with Kate, the Institute for Sustainability and Resilience at the University of Hawaii, and Icebreaker One. She previously served on the board of America's Service Commissions, the IUCN, which is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, World Conservation Congress, and was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Celeste grew up in Kailua, in Oahu. So it is indeed a pleasure to introduce to you both to our keynote speakers who will be addressing their work around the world with islands.
Oh, thank you so much, Ricardo, and good pronunciation of Hawaiian words there, Oahu. Yes, it is 11 o'clock here, but actually it's much better time than when I'm usually on calls, which is like between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. But I did actually also just move back to New Zealand from the United States. I was based in Washington, D.C. for 10 years. So worked quite a bit in the Caribbean region. So I'm really excited to be on this call. I'm gonna start us off and just try and a little bit kind of set the scene about why Celeste and I are talking about these two things. One thing is, so Celeste is going to talk about Hawaii Green Growth, the Local 2030 hub that is in Hawaii, because it's very connected also to GLISPA, and so she'll talk about that. I'll talk a little bit about the idea of islands helping islands, and I think this is very much what we've heard over the last number of presentations today even, but kind of where Puerto Rico might fit in there. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Local 2030 Islands Network, which is really kind of the new network that's looking at specifically SDG implementation. In our part of the world, we like to see kind of the building from what has gone before, from, you know, the people that went before, from energy and things that went before. And so a little bit this presentation is going to give you a sense of how we got to where we are right now. And so it's a really great pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited. I've talked with a number of people in Puerto Rico in my time in DC about actually Puerto Rico being more involved just in, even in the Global Island Partnership, but I'm very excited with this new network we have that there's a really great kind of space for becoming more involved in this global work. So without further ado, I'm going to pass to Celeste, who'll start a presentation and we'll run through that so you'll be able to see kind of visuals and get a sense of a little bit more of bringing people into the room. Celeste, I first met actually in 2012 when I was working with Hawaii before she was back in Hawaii, when she was at the White House, when we were preparing for, I think, the Rio +20 summit. So we went to see her to kind of convince her that Hawaii needs to be somehow involved. And so she's going to talk a little bit about that now. So over to you, Celeste.
Okay, thanks. I was wondering, that was my introduction music. I always have that. No, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with everybody today. And actually, Kate, if I were to qualify what you actually said, I think you came to the White House to, I think you came to the White House to advocate how islands could be leaders at Rio +20. And yes, my answer was, of course, and obviously, right? Because as Kate, the most important thing about that very long bio that you read, Ricardo, was that I'm from Hawaii. And that I think very clearly islands and island economies have such an important role to play in this collective effort that we're actually part of, the global SDGs. And I was just so delighted to hear the sharing that was happening prior to our formal presentation, to hear from Wellesley talking about business leadership, and I'll be happy to talk to you all and share what we're doing in Hawaii with our Sustainability Business Forum It does take courage. You know, the SDGs are essentially moonshot goals in some level, and we don't always know the outcome, but we're seeing businesses, especially against the backdrop of COVID and in an island context, really serve as anchor institutions, and environment, social governance, accounting, and metrics and indicators are actually critically important. And then hearing, you know, about tourism and what's happening, that's something else I can share a little bit about, and on the educational side. So it's just very exciting to be here to be able to share with you today. You know, going back tourism, Hawaii Tourism Authority actually just released its new 5-year strategy prior to COVID, recognizing that actually the path they were on with the number of tourists and the I guess the impact it was having on communities and also the natural environment was actually not sustainable. And they actually embraced the Aloha Plus Challenge that I'll speak about today and the Global Sustainable Development Goals into their 5-year strategic plan. So that's very exciting. So much alignment on an island and peer-to-peer exchange like this. Let me just share about our island approach. This is Hawaii Green Growth. So what is Hawaii Green Growth? Hawaii Green Growth Local 2030 Hub, we are a public-private partnership focused on helping Hawaii achieve these 6 priority time-bound goals that we set in 2014, 1 year prior to the SDGs, but it includes our local governments, our mayors. Hawaii has 4 mayors, our governor, the state legislature, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, our indigenous community leadership. It includes our businesses, our grassroots partners, our educational partners. So this is just a snapshot of the partners that are part of Hawaii Green Growth. It's over 150 individuals and institutions that make that up. And I think the whole concept of a public-private partnership to help manage action on the SDGs is actually critically important, because it actually keeps the goals, the long-term goals, and the resilience, which are a long-term value proposition, inherently out of sync with short-term political cycles. It keeps the momentum of the goals going beyond the political turn. Our narrative, our history, our genealogy was that we actually launched in 2011 when Honolulu hosted the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting. And actually what's important is, even though green is in our name, we're not an environmental organization. We actually are focused on economic recovery, on a green growth recovery. And this is actually inspired from the OECD Green Growth Report that emerged from the last financial crisis in 2008. And one of the pillars of the APEC summit at that time, and I actually was in the White House working on this in the Obama administration, was smart, sustainable communities. And Hawaii committed then to get on a green growth pathway. What you see here in this photo is the APEC summit photo, but on the bottom you actually see just that you have this unprecedented political leadership and coherence around the Aloha Plus Challenge goals, Hawaii's 6 goals. And in this photo, it's our state legislature, the House and the Senate, and the governor's office, the executive branch. You also have the president of Palau here. You have UN officials. You actually have our judiciary there as well. So you have all branches of government making this commitment. If you go to the next slide, Laura, this is, I'm not sure if we actually had what our 6 goals are, but we'll get to that in a moment. But let me just hand it back over. In a nutshell, the 6 goals that I'm referring to, the Aloha Plus Challenge goals, here they are. Here are to achieve clean energy by 2030, a 70% commitment, but we have a more ambitious goal to achieve 100% clean energy by 2045. We have natural resource management goal, smart, sustainable communities, waste reduction, green workforce and education, and doubling local food. And these goals, importantly, and you'll hear me come back to this, predated the SDGs. And these were agreed in 2014. So as we think about how we're really going to achieve the SDGs, it needs to be implemented at the local level, and therefore they actually need to connect with the community. And to go back to something Wesley mentioned, are we measuring the right things? When we undertook the process to determine what our metrics and indicators would be, they say you measure what matters. So we actually undertook a multi-year process to go to the communities and determine what matters to them. So I'm happy to share more about that, but I'll hand it back over to Kate, because the Global Island Partnership was critically important in actually helping Hawaii get to the place that we were able to announce the Aloha Plus Challenge.
Yes, thank you. So this slide is really looking as you can see, a whole bunch of regional initiatives with the word challenge in them, which is really, it started in Micronesia in about 2006 with a conservation commitment. All of these are political leadership, like high level political leadership commitments, backed up with extensive work to actually make them a reality. The Global Island Partnership is really, it's a partnership founded by 2 island presidents to help islands work together regardless of political status. And we're really the glue between all of these things. When I say we, all of these are also part of GLISPA. But the Micronesia Challenge was a political commitment that started in 2006. It was on conservation and sustainable financing. And then obviously some people would know of the Caribbean Challenge Initiative, which is ongoing in the Caribbean, which was inspired by Micronesia. And then we have the Aloha Plus Challenge, which Celeste is talking about, which was another political commitment, but this time focused on green growth, as she indicated. And for GLISPA, we really asked that Hawaii show us how to do this type of sustainability commitment in an island. And this is kind of where we are. We've taken different members of our partnership, the ambassador of the Seychelles to the UN. We've created a platform also for Hawaii to launch this Aloha Plus Challenge together with other islands during the SIDS meeting in Samoa in 2014, really to keep these things connected so that we continue to learn from each other. And the most recent challenge actually is one called the BEST Challenge, which is focused on European overseas countries and territories. So the 20-something overseas countries and territories are also part of their own initiative. So the only one that's focused at the moment on the Sustainable Development Goal implementation is Aloha Plus. It's kind of the first of its kind. And in our partnership, we're really looking for Hawaii to provide this leadership to show us how it's done in a way that we can take back to these other challenges who are all interested in now kind of reconfirming and re-announcing where they're going to go out to 2030. And so we see there's a really exciting moment. But I think the really key thing is up in the heading that it's islands inspiring islands. This isn't other people doing things to people. This is learning from each other and then figuring out what works in their own islands. And I think that's kind of the core. The other core to GLISPA is really the idea that islands can be champions on these issues. We always focus on solutions and what can be done and bright spots. So all of these are bright spots and all of these demonstrate the potential of islands to actually show the rest of the world how to actually do some of these things. So we see, we're extremely excited to see where we're going. One of the reasons why we're talking about this here is this is what's led us into the Local 2030 Islands Network, which is a network that we launched together with Hawaii Green Growth, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but you'll see this kind of natural progression from conservation commitments to sustainability commitments, but always with these key points around political commitment is important. And we see that as you start to, kind of be longer in these commitment processes. And then also you need other organizations and others that are going to start to work together at island level to support this to be implemented. And really the key for us is implementation. We want to see all of this stuff implemented on the ground so it makes a difference to the lives of people in islands. And I'll pass back to Celeste.
Thanks, Kate. So I did jump ahead a little bit to the Aloha Plus Challenge. So with GLISPA support, building on the really incredible legacy of the Micronesia Challenge and the Caribbean Challenge, we launched the Aloha Plus Challenge to really further demonstrate how islands can be models for sustainability. And while the earlier challenges, as Kate mentioned, had more of a conservation focus, we're really looking across economic, social, and environmental, the three-legged stools, and of the sustainability, and especially important against the backdrop of COVID, when we understand that a lot of the people in our community have lost their livelihoods, that there is a lot of suffering actually happening currently and ongoing. And how do we actually look at equity as being something that's core to everything that we need to do as we work to make progress on the SDGs? So these are our goals. If we go to the next slide here, because there's a recognition, and this is a group that we're speaking with, all of you that are very familiar with the SDGs, but I think there is a recognition that we're going to have a very difficult time achieving all 17 goals by 2030 and actually capturing the decade of action, which is going to require, transformational change across every sector of our society within the next 10 years to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. Is going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to do that if it's not happening at the local level. And the United Nations recognizes this, and particularly the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, who 3 years ago launched an initiative called Local 2030. And the idea behind Local 2030 is to make sure that local communities are driving implementation of the SDGs and that there's ownership at the local level. And as part of this initiative, she launched a series of hubs. So there are a handful of hubs around the world that were basically recognized for having a locally appropriate framework in place that can support SDG implementation. And this goes back to the goals that I mentioned before for Hawaii. Hawaii's Aloha Plus Challenge is deeply connected to indigenous knowledge and wisdom and Hawaiian host culture values. It's very much driven by a 1,000-year legacy of sustainability, that Native Hawaiians had a population of up to 1 million people prior to European contact through sustainable resource management. And so what we're seeing is, for us to truly have the impact and achieve our sustainability goals, we actually also need to look at tradition as being the innovation and looking at nature-based solutions to achieve that. So our framework is deeply connected to what is important to the community and framed around those key values. And then we can see how those roll up to the broader SDGs. Because we've seen time and time again, if it's a simply top-down approach, it won't resonate with the community, and it will be very difficult to implement. So if you go to the next slide, in our capacity as a hub, we are now able to work more strategically with our other partners through the Local 2030 Island Network. Laura, if you go back to the last slide that you just had, okay, sorry, oh, okay. So measuring what matters. I think the other thing that we do as a group is we have the Aloha Plus Challenge dashboard. It's now on an Esri-based platform. So it allows us to actually measure and evaluate our progress against our 2030 goals. What's interesting is that this dashboard is actually housed on the state.gov website, on the governor's website. And this is important because it actually brings political support and coherence to what we're doing. However, the governor's office, they don't actually manage the data. The partnership manages the data, and we get data from counties, from state, federal data, from community data. We're increasingly figuring out new and innovative ways to have community-driven data appear on the dashboard. If you go to the next slide, Laura, I think you were, yeah, this is just a snapshot of what the dashboard looks like. So you can actually go into the goals, and we have all of the actual raw data available on the website as well. You can see that we have these priority areas tracking over 200 indicators. We're tracking our businesses, as I mentioned, the Sustainability Business Forum. They said we want to be tracked on the dashboard. So we've come up with a mechanism to track their progress to achieve their ESG goals. And these are a lot of our publicly traded companies as well, being bold. Here's a snapshot of the energy efficiency goal that they're tracking progress against. We have also further localized the Aloha Plus dashboard. Our counties, we're working with the counties to say, how can we directly translate that to individual action? So if you're living in Maui or Kauai or Oahu, you can go onto that dashboard. You can actually make a commitment to increase your energy efficiency, reduce your waste, buy local, take clean forms of transportation, and it creates a kind of co-opetition, which is a great way of describing this healthy collaboration that's taking place with our mayors. And this is really important. So it's the government data, it's business data, it's community data. If you go to the next slide, Laura. So how does this all manifest in reporting? This year, we're delighted to be launching our first voluntary local review. It's also the 2020 benchmark report. It's capturing 5 years, 6 years of actual tracking progress against our local goals. It's actually all of our mayors and the governor and our partnership together are presenting this voluntary local review, and therefore it's the first statewide voluntary local review in the United States. And we're so delighted that it's island driven because we've seen great leadership with LA and New York and Helsinki and cities around the world that have now actually taken leadership and reported on their voluntary local reviews. So this is a statewide effort here, which is a sum of all the parts of our mayors and our community. I'm now going to share a brief video with you. I know that the voluntary local review, according to Ricardo, is something that you are looking at. And so if we can just share a brief video with you that shares this in more depth, and we can come back to that. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. I'm going to hand it back over to Kate now to share a little bit about how the hub, the local Hawaii Green Growth Local 2030 hub with the Global Island Partnership are now working together, at the request of the Deputy Secretary General to help scale island models in a way that's locally and culturally appropriate to them. So back over to you, Kate.
Thank you. Yes, so this beautiful slide, we are the world's first global island-led network. So, and I think that's really significant. I think there's lots of other things working on SDGs, but this is actually something that is coming from islands themselves. And so we're tremendously excited to be a part of this together with Hawaii Green Growth and other partners. I'm going to play a quick video because it's really useful to bring other people into the room, so you'll see it's not just me and Celeste. Is that at the start?
You can feel it in the air. The UN General Assembly and the SDG Summit has unlocked a powerful energy, a call to action to every single person. Island leaders continue to share their voice, building partnerships that bridge global challenges to local solutions.
The launch of the Local 2030 Island Network has laid a foundation to bring the SDGs into national plans and into the lives of individuals.
That is actually what I'm feeling in this entire week here at the UNGA, that the islands are coming together, supporting each other and also challenging each other to work towards realizing the Sustainable Development Goals. We are creative people, we are proud people, we have our own rich history, and even in facing challenges like climate change, there are pockets of innovation possible, there are investment opportunities.
Island innovation is really about identifying local solutions that are locally grown, and some of them are indigenous as in and traditional practices that have been done for generations, and others are maybe tech involved tech. So it's really how do we take those, and then our role as the local 2030 network is to figure out within this innovation space that we have in the network, how do we scale those, how are those scaled, and who are the right partners to do that. And this new network is really focused on the early movers, who is trying to actually do something on SDG local implementation, and then how do we take those examples and share them with other islands so that they can kind of both iterate themselves and figure out how that might work in their own island, and then share what they learned with others. So it's exciting.
So we think that what Hawaii can learn from this is really learning best practices in other places. What we hope to share is actually the opportunity to measure and track progress in a locally and culturally appropriate way that is organic and bottom up, and that actually informs and feeds up to the broader goals. I think what is important is that as islanders, we're inherently systems thinkers. When we are looking to achieve a large suite of really incredible goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we find as islanders that the best spaces are in between the individual and the collective, and in between civil society and business community. And if we actually look for those spaces in between, we're going to find opportunities to move the middle.
We have to be in the forefront of change. We have to inspire action. We have to be able to facilitate people to take action, but it really has to be ground up. The village, the people have to rise up.
Yes, so that is from last year when we launched this network at the UN General Assembly. So it was part of the 2019, yes, that's right, event. And I wanted to actually just highlight, since then we have a steering committee, which is this wonderful group of people on the left-hand side, including from the Federated States of Micronesia, University of Guam, Bonaire, obviously Celeste and myself, Ireland, the UN Foundation, the US Department of State, Seychelles, Shift 7, Grenada, and Curacao, who really helped to guide the network through this startup period. And then we have a group of founding members that joined in 2019. We're in the process really now of building out this network. And I think this is a really great time to be having this conversation with Puerto Rico. If we can move to the next slide. I think with the network, what we've basically done is taken all of these things we learned from GLISPA, from the political leadership side of things, from thinking about what works, from Hawaii Green Growth Local 2030 Hub in terms of the sustainability commitment and sustainability goals, and brought them together into one place, which is this new network focused really on trying to surface, identify, and support early leadership on SDG implementation. And to be part of the network, those people that are joining agree to this set of principles, which is, as I said, based on assessing kind of what works and what is needed based on our experience together with our partners. So the first is really around the idea, and you'll see it very much in Celeste's presentation, of the need to identify local goals that connect and advance the Sustainable Development Goals. So this more bottom-up approach, and that generally requires a process to develop those. The second part is having some type of entity at island level, whether it's a public-private partnership or similar. So Hawaii Green Growth is a public-private partnership, and it's the similar role to what Hawaii Green Growth is playing, that can actually bring together the diverse stakeholder groups that need to be part of this. Hawaii Green Growth also plays the role of supporting the dashboard and many other convenings, and it's a really critical role. Then the third thing that people that are in this network agree to is that they will measure SDG progress. So those goals that they set earlier, that those will be measured, and there will be some accountability to those. whether it's through a dashboard, which most islands that are early parts of this network are interested in kind of creating themselves, or something similar. So we know that all of this stuff will continue to be built upon and evolve as different places do it. But we have a really great model, and so we're really excited about that. And then finally, that it results in something concrete happening, that there's projects, that there's actions actually happening at island level. And so that's really the 4 principles of this part of this network. Celeste, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's, I think what's exciting about this is it's truly a peer-to-peer learning opportunity. So often what we have is top-down. I would also say that what's really exciting to me to see is, particularly in the last couple of years, there's just been a proliferation of local leadership, local action, both civil society, academia, private sector, local government, basically taking the lead in determining what is the right thing for their communities, and seeing that the SDGs can actually provide this great framework to look at the intersection of all these issues. When I mentioned that islands are inherently system thinkers in the video, it's that our experience in Hawaii is that the youth understand this inherently. I've never struggled to explain the concept of sustainability. In fact, that's not really what our job is. When you grow up in an island context, you inherently understand that what you do in your upper watershed will affect your coral reef and everything in between, and the communities in between. And so there's a natural understanding of systems thinking, which is really representative of, which is what the Sustainable Development Goal Framework presents. And especially as we are emerging from COVID, how we have a ready-made economic framework for recovery, one that puts equity at its core, is really critically important. So there's a youth component to this, that it's not our job to teach sustainability top down or to teach the SDGs top down, but rather to create the frameworks, the platforms for our youth to be able to share their ideas, to get involved in the conversation, and really help accelerate this action. So I just wanted to bring that youth component into the conversation as well, especially those operating in an island context.
Awesome. And this is actually just a picture from one of the parts of our launch. We were lucky to have a session inside the SDG Action Zone, which was broadcast all over the place. And these are actually some of our, it's Grenada and Ireland and one of our partners from UNDP Small Grants Program, along with Celeste and I, really just talking about what local implementation of the SDGs looks like in each of these contexts. And I think 2021, so 2020 has really been a great year for consolidation, obviously for everyone. And we have, I think, an excellent steering committee and an excellent group of islands that we're working with. And I really foresee that in 2021, we'll see a lot more of this this specific network and this group. And also on all of the things I've been working on for the last 20 or so years, I think this is probably the most exciting thing, this actual kind of everything coming together in this network. It builds on everything we've learned and all of the sorts of things that we've identified where, I used to work a lot more on conservation. Why is conservation not mainstreamed? Well, because we're thinking about it wrong. Like the SDGs offers such an amazing opportunity for all islands to work together, firstly, but also on issues that are really critical and important to you, and to rethink it. So I think this network, the dashboard, this process is tremendously exciting, and I really invite whoever's interested to be part of it, Over to you, Celeste.
Well, I'm going to do like Ricardo. We have a thing called Hawaiian time, which is slightly later than everybody else's time, but it looks like we're right on time. And I'm sure we can share a little bit more as we have a dialogue and discussion. So why don't we close there, and Ricardo, will hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much to both of you for an excellent presentation. I particularly loved the videos that you showed, but the cohesiveness of the process, the process also of inspiration by different challenges throughout time. And I, like you both, I am very excited about the Local 2030 Island Network, that GLISPA and Hawaii Green Growth are playing a pivotal role in it. And I was also most interested to see our parent organization involved, the United Nations Foundation. To eventually talk with her and to you guys to see what specific concrete contribution is the UN Foundation doing. Is it financially? It's in a coordinating capacity. But of course, all these questions are going to come to play. But very excited of the prospects of the future and island collaboration. And I certainly, my hat off to you both for the work that you have been doing for all your life. I know Kate has been involved for 25 years, and also Celeste working with the Millennium Development Goals, and also then afterwards with the SDGs. So I am honored to have you today, delighted by your presentation, and also trying to see in Puerto Rico, as you see, we are interested in the subject. We are creating networks, just as the Puerto Rico SDG Working Group, but also the RCE in Puerto Rico, and we are collaborating, and that's something that is not always easy. That co-opetition that you mentioned before, that should be the north that guides us, because we are also a small island, and we are all trying to move our NGOs forward and work with government and other sectors, but it is indeed a challenge, and I am glad that the circumstances of the world are gearing us all in that direction. So once again, thank you so much for your presentation, and we are trying to see how we can use those 4 principles. That for me, that was such a great thing when I saw the Local 2030 Island Network and the things that I already mentioned, but to have a model, to have a chronology or at least to things to aspire in the future, I think those principles are going to be very helpful for us. It's going to be different what you do in New Zealand, in Hawaii, and we eventually do in Puerto Rico. But at least if we have a common link, and those principles for me are great, and I am going to continue working with you and all the people in Puerto Rico to continue to move them forward, to move them from theory to practice. So once again, thank you so much for being with us, and I am now going to open the floor either by chat for questions. As you mentioned, Celeste, this seldom happens in our island either for us to be on time. So we were right on time with the time that we selected. It's most unusual. But once again, I open now the floor for all those who would like to raise your hand in order to be in order. You could raise your hand or you could write your question via the chat room. As I don't see any question as of yet, but I already remember one question that one of our members, Mario Marazzi, the former director of the Puerto Rico Statistics Institute, I remember that he mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago when we spoke last, how was the funding? How do you achieve the funding for the dashboard in Hawaii? Was it with the state government that it's putting all the finances behind it, or was it a philanthropic reach out that you did with several foundations? How were you able to build it, and most importantly, once you build it, the maintenance that goes afterwards? And you mentioned that you made the switch towards the ERSI platform. How are you financing and maintaining this dashboard, Celeste?
Yeah, that's a great question. I should also mention, as the public-private partnership, we're a network-based organization, we're a membership-based organization. So it's not necessarily a pay-to-play, but whether you give, $10 or $100 or $10,000, it actually anchors that inclusivity. Because right away it changes from those Hawaii Green Growth Network to we. And so this is the answer to the dashboard funding as well, actually, because when we have our annual meetings, we set our strategic priorities as a collective, as a group. I should also say the unique thing about the partnership, to my mind, is it's creating this incredible place of trust. So like any conversation, we might have differing views on how we get from point A to point B, but I think we can all agree we want a more prosperous future for Hawaii, our islands, and what we call island Earth. And so the funding from the dashboard has come in different ways. It was an initial support from our Hawaii Community Foundation, but not them only. It was actually Hui. It was actually, they themselves were being innovative. For the first time, they wanted to get together and to support something big across their different foundations. And so they actually launched something which I think is quite innovative called the Environmental Funders Group. And so the dashboard was one of their first collective efforts. So it's partly funded by philanthropy through this Environmental Funders Group. It's also supported by our counties. And that's actually important because it shows actually that the mayors are bought into this, right? The counties are bought in. So they provide some resources, some state resources. The businesses are also supporting the dashboard through their Sustainability Business Forum and seeing the metrics on there. So in Hawaii, we say kako, a collective effort, is really what is supporting this because it also actually shows the collective buy-in. With Esri, we're really delighted to partner with Esri. The state government, actually we have a partnership with the data office within the state government that is actually working with us on managing the data. Although our team does the majority of the work of presenting that, streamlining it, and coordinating around that. But that's also a partnership that they're providing some in-kind support. And then with Esri, what we're really hoping to do is see how through the Local 2030 Island Network, Esri can at least provide this service. I know that's something that you're looking at, Ricardo, on a reduced rate for our island partners. I hope that answers the question about funding of the dashboard. It's little bits and pieces and larger components, but it's actually very important that it is funded and seen as a collective effort.
Thank you so much for your answer. Certainly very informative. We certainly will take it into account. I would now pass the microphone to Luis Ferrer, Luis Alberto Ferrer, of Grupo Ferrer Rangel in Puerto Rico. Luis, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. I'll be short, but I'll spare everybody with the congratulations. It's just amazing work that's being done. I see Sandra's question is the same as mine, meaning, Celeste, can you talk a little bit about the public-private partnership and how that came about? Because everybody in this group knows how hard it is to get Puerto Ricans in agreement with something. We're very easy to disagree, but to agree on something, I'd like to hear a little bit about the experience of the public-private partnership. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And you know, what's so exciting is, I have to say this again, even being invited to participate in this discussion with you, knowing so much of what you've done in Puerto Rico and continue to do, and how a lot of that is also inspiring our actions. So I think it's like anything, you know, when I was in government, I recognized we actually didn't have enough resources to do everything that we needed to do, right, Luis? And so even then in the White House, we were seeking public-private partnerships. And those come in public-private partnerships mean you could drive a truck through that. It means everything to everybody and nothing at the same time. And we're not talking about a toll road, right? We're talking about a transaction, a group of people that are coming together around those high-level goals. And I think we established, first of all, that not everybody is automatically a member of the network. You're invited to be part of it. And similar to the 4 principles of joining the network, of the global network, but of the Hawaii Green Growth Partnership, is can you agree to even if you have a particular issue that's important to you, in the spirit of sustainability, can you also support other people's priorities? So say, energy is my main thing, but I need to also support what my colleagues are doing on clean water or on smart, sustainable communities. So, and then I think the partnership formed also around the high-level goals commitment. And as we started to drill down on what that would actually mean and how we would measure it, we were very clear about measuring across the actual goals, but make sure that we had different stakeholders from each group. So even if we were convening around local food, we made sure that our energy people were in the room, that our education people were in the room, that the waste folks were in the room, because we were building into our process a way of going further into our silos. So part of the partnership is breaking through the silos. And that's why islands are the solution. Because we know that we have limited land, we have high ambitions. In the case of Hawaii, we have a housing shortage that has put us on the cover of the New York Times, which is not a good way to get on the cover of the New York Times. We have a 100% clean energy goal. We have food security challenges. And how do you achieve that all? You have to create those shared value. So when we challenge folks, we say, how do we find those solutions that are at the water, energy, food nexus? And then recognizing that there have to be trade-offs. One other thing, Louise, I would just say is when you do that, you might hit the wall faster, but then you have to innovate around that solution, right? So when you build anything or do anything, very often it's the community that's left out of that conversation, right? And then it ends up being more costly and it ends up not being built. And so how do we make sure through the partnership you can have all these conversations in parallel? Community engagement, finance, legal structuring, political will, political buy-in. The financing aspect is really important too. How are we actually building things? How are we developing solutions that are actually attractive to external capital? How can we leverage limited public resources to catalyze increased investments to support the different projects that we're working on? I think one other comment I would make is time. It takes time to build trust, and it can be easily lost. So there are many steps along the way that we demonstrate trust. In our business forum, we have Chatham House rule. So you can talk about what was said at the meeting and what you learned, as you know, but you can't attribute it. So over the years, we've built the trust so that even if we disagree, and there are big issues, there's GMOs, there's all kinds of things that people might disagree, but when you enter into the so-called tent of the partnership discussion, you have made a commitment to be collaborative. And the time-bound goals provide that high-level, real North Star that even if, as I said, if we disagree, the pathway to get there, we know that we need to get to that goal.
I think the other thing is you're facing kind of two realities. One is it takes a long time. So for Hawaii to get where it is now, it took years of work, like kind of consistently. But the second is that all of the crises we're trying to address are like right now. I mean, so you've got to kind of weave between these two spaces. I think there's quite a few questions on the funding side of things. And I think that's really, I think I'll ask Celeste to talk to that. But because I was involved in the early part of Hawaii Green Growth, some of the funding actually came from institutions in Hawaii to kind of put in place a person initially that was the core of the public-private partnership to get going. So I think one of the early funders actually was Hawaii Electric Company, so the actual electric company. And the real key was having people very early on who understood how to connect between different people around this. And I think Celeste can talk to that a little bit, but that's really critical. I think it's this building trust and looking at how people can collectively put resources that they might have, that they might be going to do something with, into something like this to start to get it going.
Yeah, let me
talk to the resource side of things.
Yeah, I'll just give an example. We have a 30% nearshore marine management goal by 2030. And if you saw in the video, unfortunately, that's one that we're not really close to meeting our goal. We're only at 7% now. It's really difficult because fisheries are managed differently in different places. There's a tourism component there as well. But there was an external philanthropy that actually wanted specifically to give resources to our organization to help advance that goal that could be a global model. What we were able to do is receive that money, but then further distribute it to our partners that are actually doing the action on the ground, right? We actually were able to give money back to give money to, so money flows both ways. We get money for the dashboard for our counties, but we give the counties monies to set up their localized dashboards. And that kind of goes to what Kate's saying. It's how do you look for these joint resource mobilization? As a partnership, we provide a lot of letters of support for different grants that communities are going for as they're connecting it to the goals. Going back to this one example, we were able to pay support for our State Department of Land and Natural Resources, their aquatic resources group, also to the local TNC offices, local CI offices, also to our indigenous community groups that were actually stewarding those resources. And we were actually able to set up a revolving fund, a community fund to support community-based subsistence fishing fund. So we were actually able to think about new and creative ways of new resources, right? Back to the resource side, with our Sustainability Business Forum, they convened around 3 priority issues. One was looking for market-based mechanisms to support carbon mitigation, from which we are creating the first carbon offset pilot. They were looking at sustainable tourism. It's really the economic heart of our economy, which is why we're so devastated as a result of COVID. And the third priority was the Green Your Business Initiative, what actions they can actually take individually with their company operations to shift the trajectory. On the first, we partnered with the Nature Conservancy to do a carbon offset pilot. So they were putting resources into that to make that project investment ready. Let me address, Sandra, your question about the key elements of the conversation with government leaders, because that's really a part of the really incredible work that GLISPA has been doing, continues to do, and how we're working now with Guam and even Tasmania, and how we can work with each other, because it's a strange story, but as I understand it, I was still in DC at the time. Apparently Ambassador Ronnie Jameau, who's a climate ambassador from Seychelles, who's part of GLISPA, was on the GLISPA leadership, flew over to Hawaii and challenged Hawaii to be a model for sustainability. And Hawaii responded with the Aloha
Not just
Plus
Hawaii,
challenge.
the governor.
The governor.
Directly to the governor.
Sorry,
yeah.
to the governor. So it was kind of fun. This is where we can work behind the scenes. We help each other set at these moments, right? And we set up a similar moment with Guam. We had an opportunity to invite the governor of Guam to an event that we're convening at the United Nations. And we're delighted to see that Guam has since launched a Guam Green Growth. Their governor is very active, as is their lieutenant governor. Their legislature is getting involved. They have set these strategic priorities. So sometimes it takes both bottom up and then, peer-to-peer challenging for that competition to get that started. I know I'm talking quite a bit. One final comment I would make, having been in government and in private sector in any case, as you all know, it's all about finding what is the need of the other party or individual. What is it that they are trying to achieve? And especially when you look at an incoming mayor, because we've now transitioned this initiative through 2 governors and 4 mayors. And what is often the political inclination, one might think, to just throw everything out that the last guy or gal did and start with their priorities. True political leadership is actually looking at continuing things that are community embraced and driven. However, especially with the SDGs, you can help them see how they can achieve their priorities through that. Whether it was previously a focus on natural resource management, but now it's a focus on education and transportation. And so when we do that, when we understand what is the really burning policy priority issues of government leaders, and we can actually help demonstrate how we create shared value, and how even our business forum can be working with our political leaders and others to create that shared value. I think that's the approach that we take. So those would be among the key elements: identifying what are the priorities of the incoming individual, figure out how the partnership can actually support that, and then look for really tangible ways that we can demonstrate that we're making progress on those priorities.
Thank you so much, Celeste and Kate, for your answer to a very candid and important question that Luis Alberto raised, and it's something that we certainly going to. It's a question that it's always on our mind. How could we start this process? Interpersonal skills, being able to recognize the needs of others are kind of the basics, but bringing it from theory to practice. And realizing, as Kate mentioned, that this didn't happen overnight, and this took several years. It's not that we're gonna be sleeping in the laurels, and we know that we have to move quickly, but also we have to think about this process and how could Puerto Rico learn from others' experiences like yours, and how we make it happen in the island. So it's great, the feedback that we have received. And to all that have joined, let me tell you that we have been recording the meeting, and we're going to be posting this on our YouTube channel, but also we're going to make the point of sending it individually to every person that was here today. We're also going to share it with the SDG working group for those that weren't able to join us live tonight. So, and also to mention to you guys that just before 2 minutes before 8 o'clock, we would like to have a group photo. So those of you who want to get set up and I don't know, brush your hair or change the setting that you're in at this time, just a quick reminder that this is going to happen in a few minutes. And before that last gesture happens, let me recognize the president of our board, who has a question regarding COVID-19. And as you mentioned, Celeste, how this had such an impact in Hawaii as it has in Puerto Rico. So Jorge, I pass it.
Well, first of all, thank you all. Tremendous presentations and very timely, very concise, and very effective. Thank you very much. I was just thinking, of course, the biggest hurdle and obstacle and that we have around the world is COVID-19. I know New Zealand has done one of the most fantastic jobs that around the world, and but I'm worrying about Hawaii and the this is of course Sustainable Development Goal 3, the wellness health. I'm just wondering, Hawaii has the program that you've set up, has it worked in any way with respect to handling COVID-19 issues? What has been experienced in Hawaii? We knew New Zealand, fantastic, yeah. But I just wonder about Hawaii.
Yeah, Jorge, to your point, we've had just extreme disruption, COVID-related disruption. We went from having the lowest unemployment rates, I think, in the country to the highest, literally practically overnight. But I would say in two ways, right? We are actually on the dashboard tracking COVID data, where people can get access to the tests, but also the trends and what's actually happening. That's provided by another one of our partners that is really doing a deep dive on the COVID data. So it's actually there. Another thing that we had that was happening was interesting. It goes more to the broader lively, and I should just say that we're still trying to figure it out on the tourism side. How often we can, when we can open up, how we open up, on the quarantine, on how long, with visitors, what we can do with the pre-testing. And I think like many island economies and communities, we're grappling with that. And then we're trying to stop community spread and having people embrace best practices. So I think that our tourists are being mindful of that and recognizing that. And it's how we work collaboratively with our tourism economy, but really mindful that we are taking a huge hit in our revenue. So there are aspects, including our small businesses, that there is a lot of pressure to open up. And then you also have other elected officials. Some of our mayors are being slower or more cautious, understandably, given what's actually happening in their specific communities about community spread. So I think like everyone, we're muddling through it, but hopefully we see a light at the end of the tunnel. Testing is actually critically important. On the livelihood side, what we've done on the dashboard is our partners came to us at one point and said, Celeste, we're really worried that as and when the federal funding comes, it's just going to go to the bright, shiny object. And the folks that have been working on sustainability over the last decade will be left out of that. How can you help? And so we thought about it and we said, look, there are green growth jobs available right now. If we had the resources, we could put people into those jobs. So we did a whole statewide survey and we said, tell us the jobs, whether it was a farm to school program. You know, oh yeah, if we had the resources, we could bring 10 more people onto this program. We could complete having farm to school programs across every eligible school. So we ran a whole statewide survey. We identified over 9,300 jobs at a cost of about $535 million. And we put it all together so you could see it by sector. We were looking at also like the innovation economy, you know, a lot of what our university was driving on media and, you know, content. I'm blinking right now on, we have a bunch of great Disney folks that have actually relocated to Hawaii actually that are doing great stuff with students in that area on animation. Mm-hmm. So non-traditional sustainability areas, which just fall into sustainability because it's workforce. So we were able to then to present that data to the governor, to our legislature that were actually making real decisions on how we would distribute the money. Now, what happened was actually we partnered with another organization and the economic development offices of each of the counties, and a gentleman, Omar Sultan, who is an impact investor here. We created a program called Aloha Connects Innovation. And what we've been doing over the last couple of months is very deliberately, very difficult but rewarding, placing like 500 displaced workers into jobs, getting them onboarded into the HR system. If they came from the tourism economy, how do those skills move into these different sections? And the great thing is the governor is directly connecting that to the Aloha Plus Challenge and the SDGs. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have an interesting model for how federal funding to support COVID recovery can be directly tied to the SDGs. And once we demonstrate that we have a ready-made economic recovery framework, I think it will actually speed up our recovery time. So I'm sorry for the very long response. I was just on a call this morning. I'm quite excited. And you're talking about real people and real pain and real jobs. Yeah.
It's the real thing right now. Thank you very much. Good answer. Good answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much once again. Kate, please do remember to send me your preferred mailing address, as we will be sending a bag of goodies both to Celeste and Celeste and you. From Puerto Rico, from a producer startup. I was certainly interested in you receiving these products from our island. So this is going to happen as soon as the mail gets to you both. So please share your address as well, as Celeste already did. And once again, for those who want to turn on their cameras, I'm going to be asking Laura if you could be so kind, and also Christopher Nitch, to take a group picture of all of those who have been here today. My deep appreciation for the local presenters that were with us tonight, and also our international keynote speakers, Kate and Celeste. I couldn't be more grateful for you taking the time for this activity, knowing your hectic schedule, Celeste, and also yours, Kate. So thank you so much for your time. And now we have a group picture that we're able to take. Everybody already brushed their hair and it's all set up here. So
especially me.
Of course. I've seen the change in the last few minutes with your appearance. So thank you so much.
Both Jorges are preparing.
Jorge Silva as well.
I like the flag.
I'm in that direction already. I already have 50,000 miles, so I will join you soon.
Oh, I'll take a
once again, okay, I will do also
I like the flag.
Okay, so a picture, nice flag, Louis.
Okay, here we go. Let me take another one here.
Okay, did it happen? Very well. Thank you very much, Chris, Laura, Luis, everybody that joined today. Thank you so much, and we shall be in contact. This is not going to be the last, and once again, deeply appreciated for all of you for joining us tonight, and have a great night. Thank you so much once again to all of you.
Thank you.
Aloha. Thank you.
Aloha.